Hey guys, how is everyone doing today? Node Investor here. So I want to talk markets. We're going to use this live stream as a little bit of an open session. I'm going to go through the charts with you guys real time, and what we will do is kind of build a little bit of a watch list. And I just kind of want to share a little bit of the thought process methodology that I use when I'm kind of scanning the charts, the different tools available. Obviously, this is not going to be a comprehensive list or method, but just one way to do it, just sharing some tips on how to keep track of stuff, because there's always 100 things we could look at, and so just want to do that. But I hope everyone is doing well. As you can see on the chart here, I have the S&P 500. The sell-off continues. Dow Jones was down pretty big today, down about almost 400 points right now, down 385, and so the sell-off continues. I was short the markets the last couple of days, but I closed out my short yesterday in the open when it gapped down. Clearly, I was way too early. So, yeah, I was riding a little bit of this wave down, and then yesterday it gapped down pretty good. Where was it? Here it is, this green bar, and closed it within the hour of that gap. So I was feeling pretty good because I caught most of that low, and then it rallied for the rest of the day, and I thought, hey, that was a pretty good profit taking there, and then it rallied, and then it just sold off into the end of the day. And then this morning looked like maybe it was about to get going again, and it just has continued. Let me go to the hourlies. Has continued to close off. This was yesterday, by the way. So opened up, gap down, and then continued lower, and just took profit into strength. But today we're seeing a pretty good sell-off again. So stock market continues to get hit pretty hard. I mean, and there's a lot of reasons why, but I think it was just the signs were there. We were due. We had a failed breakout on the Dow and some of the others exchanges, and so still very much the short game. But I think it feels a little extended, a little bit overdone. I thought that was the case yesterday. I thought we'd see a pretty good bounce today, but we're not seeing it. So the carnage continues on the Wall Street side of things. So a lot of red across the board here today. And it is earnings season, so it's kind of mixed tape. We'll see how it goes. The weed stocks, I didn't capitalize on the short side this time. I was playing the short side up here, but man, they're getting smacked. It was your very typical expected sell the news scenario, and they're just really getting rolled over now, especially with the market finally topping out here. You can see the MJ ETF taking a pretty good smacking here in the last week or so. If you look at from the gap up open here to today, down about 27%, 28%. So weed stocks getting hit. Not surprising, to be honest. I mean, they were just so overhyped, and we all remember when Tilray was going climactic here, and I was kind of saying I'd be taking profits. If it were me, I'd be taking profits here. But we'll see where they go. Long term, it's anyone's guess. They're probably not going away, but I think most of these were overdone anyway, overvalued and way overhyped. And so the sell-off continues. But we're here to talk crypto today, so we'll certainly do that. And if you have any charts and any specific names you want to look at, we will do that. So let's start going through the list here. Hitting the big one first, BTC. So let me go to Coinbase here. And this is real interesting because it's been in this range for 9 days now. And I was kind of quickly scanning the chart here for the last year. I'm not so sure we've had a 9-day $100 range this year, right? I mean, that's and to be fair, if you count these wicks, I mean, it's probably more like a $140 range. But that's pretty significant, the fact that it's been that flat. We've had flat periods. Remember back here before the big sell-off, I mean, that was about a $200 range, 150. And that was pretty long, right? That range lasted a good 10 days or so. So pretty long, but this one is much flatter from that perspective. Kind of going back in history here, this, we get these periods of time where it flattens out like that, but not like we've seen right now for this long and for that tight. So breakout is imminent, in my opinion. Which way it goes is anyone's guess. Kind of just scrolling back, and I mean, obviously late last year was the big run, so we didn't really see that much of a flat market. So it's really hard. And once you get back here, obviously there was more $100 ranges because the price was so much smaller, right? Where $100 was like 10% of the price back here. Over here, not so much. So I'm not so sure. I'll have to do the math and see if we can find it the last time it was this tight, but it's significant, the fact that we're sitting this tight. Let me pull up my volatility chart. I do don't show it a whole lot, but I do have a volatility where I track kind of Bollinger Bands and Keltner channels and average true range, basically all kind of the same thing. But if you look at BTC in that point of view, right, you can see these Bollinger Bands. Let me show you the Bollinger Bands first. All right, there are these red and blue channels here. Look at how tight that is here in the last week or so, right? And just kind of very tight, very unusual, low volatility. And so you're seeing the Bollinger Bands. And then if you throw a Keltner channel over that, right, if you do the standard kind of 1.5, this is your classic kind of Bollinger Band squeeze setup where the Bollinger Bands are trading within the average true range of a price time frame. And generally, you can expect some volatility out of that. On the daily channel, the Bollinger Bands aren't quite there yet. The last time we saw them was back here, right at the early part of the month before that big break lower. And so very similar type of setup. You can see the Bollinger Bands were squeezing within the Keltner channels there. Not quite there yet because of these two candles here, and the Bollinger Bands are 20 days. On this chart, they're 20 periods, but in this chart, it's 20 days out. So these are still factored in. Once those drop off, if they drop off before it breaks out, that'll tighten them up. But on the 4-hour, on the 12-hour, very much in squeeze mode. Look here at the 12-hour. It's like, I'm not so sure these can get any tighter. So look out is all I'm saying. We're looking at some potential action coming in the next day or two, which we'll see how that plays out. So let's go to the names that we have on the list here, and then we'll start scanning the charts, seeing what's going on. Real quick, back to BTC. It's still, like I said, very much range bound. We had this trend that I was watching. It's nice to see that it held, kind of put in a little bit, very small, right? I don't even want to call it that, but it's a little bit of a double bottom, but still just a big symmetrical type of pattern within this range. And look at where it stopped. It had that wick right to the top of the range and then pulled right back. But all in all, it's good that it did that, right? That it bounced right off that level and it's trying to move higher. On the daily chart, it's technically bearish, right? You get the 10 EMA that's living right below price, but moving averages in this point, whether price is above or below, is not as significant because they're not trending. Really, the story is they're going flat, right? Look at the moving averages are going sideways. So whether they start to move in and around this price range doesn't really matter a whole lot, to be honest with you, because it's just a range-bound market at this point. Similar to what we saw here, right? Look at the moving averages. They were maybe crisscrossing back and forth. Here, price was vacillating up and down over the moving averages, but moving averages didn't matter a whole lot on this daily chart back here, and they're not really mattering a whole lot right now. If you go to the weekly chart, bear trend still very much intact, right? You see the 22 weekly EMAs up here, the 10 EMAs down here, prices below both of these in the last 2 months or so. And so we really need to see prices shoot above. If it can close above this 22 EMA, that'd be good. That'd be the first time in, since basically August that we've seen that. But ultimately, big picture, price getting back above 7,300, 7,400 would be significant, would be a big breakout. On the downside, if prices start to close below 6K, that's the same number we've been tracking for some time. And, odds favor right now. If you look at the big picture, it'd be a lot easier to break this lower than it would be to break higher. But everyone's expecting it to go lower, so maybe it doesn't. So, it's just kind of one of those things. Maybe you get a fake out one way or the other, right? We're still kind of waiting for that potential to happen. But all in all, Bitcoin hasn't really been tradable, hasn't really been exciting. It's really been the alt story. That's really the case right now. If you look at ETH, I know it's an alt technically, but even, this one's basically tracking to BTC. So not a whole lot to do from that perspective either. Where is it on Coinbase? Here it is. And so you can see, let me clear these old markups, and it's almost like, not that I've forgotten about it, but I've just not been paying as much attention to both of these in a while, just because they're just flat and sideways. I definitely have alerts set. So for example, if you're using TradingView or Coinigy, you can set price alerts and it'll email you or text you, or if you're watching the chart real time, it'll do that. And I always track BTC from that perspective, so I'll definitely be aware if we see some action. But what I would recommend is, if you want to track some of these prices, just kind of keep a wider range, right? Because if there is a movement, it's going to be a significant move will be out of this range. And you can see just how symmetrical this guy is getting, you know, with this higher low and lower high type of action. So again, another one that's, you know, imminent breakout here. And I say imminent, could be today, could be Saturday, right? But definitely within the next few days, feels that way. And so that's what I'd be watching here. But ETH, BTC kind of just track into each other for the most part, not a whole lot there. So really the story has been in the altcoin market, and a lot of it has been in the mid cap and small cap names. And so if we go through some of those, obviously the big five on the Coinbase potential, Bitcoin, basic attention has been on a tear, was on a nice tear again today. I didn't catch this entry here. I was talking about a potential, you know, break above this downtrend, and you can see it moved right back to the moving averages. MACD started to curl higher, and this guy broke out. Nice little push today. I think it was up like 12 or 13%. This is now up about 9.5. At the peak, it was up about 12, so not too bad. But it is getting a little extended, so just keep that in mind. This has had a run, and you're seeing some profit taking start to show up here. Let me pull the volume in. See the volume kind of showing up here, big volume spike near the top. So just something to note, and it is making a lower high. So if it can't break out here on this latest push higher, a little bit of a red flag, right? If it does one of these. Now, it could form a new base up here, so I'd be looking out for that. But if it starts to undercut, especially if it breaks below this level here, that's going to put a big double top in place. But that's just one potential scenario, right? So you always kind of want to forecast out what could happen next. The other alternative is it forms a nice base up here consolidation and could form a cup and handle or an ascending triangle, right? And that's not unusual when you see you got a high here, you got another high, and if it pulls back just slightly, let these moving averages catch up, then that's a little bit of a handle. That would make a nice ascending, or excuse me, nice cup and handle breakout. If it pulls back a little bit deeper but doesn't quite get to this neckline on the double top, then in that scenario, you start looking at a potential ascending triangle. It means the consolidation is going to go a little bit longer, but in my opinion, an ascending triangle breakout is much stronger than a cup and handle breakout. And so that would be nice. And so that's just something to note, right? If it can hold up at these levels and not just completely sell off, then start looking for a higher low. And an ascending triangle, you want at least two dips, right? So you got this first dip, rallies right up to the highs or just close to it. You want a second dip, but it has to be higher than the first dip, and then rallies right back up, and then forms this flat top type of thing. And then at that point, anything that happens here between the top and this most recent dip, that's kind of your buy zone, right? You want to start looking for some entry points in around there, or you can just play the breakout, completely pure breakout, but you want a tight entry point, right? You don't want to chase it after it breaks out. So that's how I look at those, but still very much in play. And, you know, it still has that kind of speculation of it being added to Coinbase. So should be watched in my opinion. So that's basic attention. And so as we go through these, you'll notice I got a little bit of, let me flag this one because this one should be on here. This is Bittrex. Let me put it on Binance here. And so what I would recommend doing, if you use TradingView a lot, I know it's a little bit mixed, but most of you guys use TradingView. I have a paid version, and so it lets me do more than the free version in terms of watch lists and the number of indicators and alerts that I can set. But what I would recommend, especially if you're using the paid version, is keep multiple watch lists in place. So I have a cryptocurrency watch list, and I also have one for USD pairs only, right? So I keep a watch list of crypto USD pairs or USD Tether pairs, one or the other. But then I have just a pure BTC pair list, right? And I do have Bitcoin on that list just because I watch it, but everything else is a BTC pair. And so I'll do that. And then what I do is I do keep a flagged list. And I cycle through this daily, and I kind of just try to purge it and clean it out. If it gets way too long, then it's not a watch list anymore. And right now it's feeling a little long for me. And so I got to cut some of this out. But this is a good way to kind of keep an eye on what's moving. I would recommend keeping maybe like 10, 15 names on here at a time if there's that many setups. And so I would do that. And I also have some other watch lists. You can set up a new watch list that's called open trades, right? And that could be like anytime you're in a specific trade, you add it to that list. And that way you can just very quickly go through charts for the trades that you're in only. And so this is kind of handy, right? Then you can mark up the chart and put your buy in, your sell points and all that fun stuff. You can do this kind of long position trading and all that. So I would recommend using the watch lists and just kind of pre-setting them up. I have some extra ones on here just because I keep track of like the Forex markets and the metals and the stocks. Certainly you don't need that much, but it just helps organize the charts for me. So that's what I would recommend. And as we cycle through some of these names, I'll just kind of add them to the flag list and we'll see how they look here. And so that's kind of the first way to do it. Obviously, if something's on the watch list, then the next thing I do is I'll go and I'll set some alerts, right? So for example, in the case of QuantStamp, I had an alert the other day right above my conditional buy points. At the time I was looking at the chart, it was right here, and I was thinking I'm just going to wait for it to clear this little consolidation. I'll buy it at 672. So I had an alert set at that point. It did clear, and it had this big outside bar, pulled right back in, and so my alert went off. That just let me know I was in the trade at that point. And what I do after that is when I'm on a trade, I will set an alert at my stop point, and I will set an alert at some sort of target profit or some sort of range that I'm watching for a potential breakouts. And so if I'm looking at, hey, if it clears this range, let me know. And just so I'm pinged when there's some movement and that sort of thing, right, on specific names like the ones I'm currently on. And so that's one way to do it. But QuantStamp's still looking pretty good here. If you look at the daily charts, it's still consolidating nicely, right? It had that big push, massive volume, lower volume on this way down. So not too bad there. Shorter term time frames, volume was big here near the highs, right? And I mentioned that already. You can see this big volume at the top here. But since then, it's been pretty quiet. And so could break either way. But the fact that the moving averages are heading north is very positive, right? The fact that price has been staying above the shorter term 10 EMA is positive, and it's still within this little bit of a range. And so I'm looking for a push above that 680 level. Now I've got an alert set on my chart at 692, which is just at the top of this big wick, this outside bar we saw. So for me, until it clears that, it's still range bound technically. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. But once it clears that, then I'm going to start looking for some momentum. And at that point is when I start raising the stops, right? I start kind of looking for, hey, is this pushing through? Start raising the stops and protecting your capital, kind of minimizing risk, right? Initially, you don't want to raise it too tight because then you may get wicked out on just kind of normal price action. You want to give it a little bit of room. Normally for me, that's 1R, meaning the price has moved one equivalent to my original stop. So if my stop was 3%, price goes up 3% or a little bit higher, that's when I start pushing the stop up. If I have a wide stop, let's say it was a 7%er, and I'm looking for like a 14% move out of it, then at 1R, I may take profit on half the position and let the rest ride just to kind of secure some gains at 7%. So that's generally how I'll approach the profit taking and the stop adjustment potential. So let's do that. So QuantStamp still very much in range, basically flat on the trade. Not a whole lot of movement. I think it officially is down. Like, where did I get in? I got in at 672, so it's technically down by 1% or 0.5% or something. Stratus, big move today. Good to see that. We had a partnership announcement, caused this big green candle, massive volume on that spike. I'm technically out of the trade now, but I'm watching it. I was hoping to see a little bit more of a retracement. The fact that it's not retracing is actually pretty positive here. You can see this 1 hour chart just kind of consolidating, but these moving averages are catching up. At this point, it was a pretty decent profit, so I'm not going to chase it and try to jump back in. I'd rather wait for a new consolidation, even if it's at a higher price. Just a better risk entry, right? But jumped in on this one at 23.35, I believe, is what it was, and it was right here. And so the reason for that, let me go here. Right, so if we kind of replay this out, is it came on the radar here, a day before after I had that breakout. So This was one I was watching. I didn't jump on it here when I was already on some other trades, but it looked like it wanted to push higher. And then it broke out. And I thought, okay, well, I missed it. But if it starts to pull back, then I'll be looking at it for a potential secondary entry point. And you know, this came up on the alerts that hit everything. So I employed the kind of the 1 hour entry rule here on this guy. And you can see it pulled back. Moving averages never inverted, came very close. These moving averages started to roll over, which is why I didn't jump on it when it issued a buy signal. Technically, the buy signal was, well, there was a false positive here, but then it issued a second buy signal here on this candle. Let me mark that for us on that guy. But I didn't want to jump on it until I was sure. So I wanted to see a little bit more confirmation, meaning could it get above price a little bit above moving averages, and ideally above this little consolidation right here. And let me highlight that. All right, so you can see these two candles here, that was kind of the low of those, and then it tried to rally above that and just couldn't get above. So that was really my quote unquote breakout point, right? That's really the level. And I had a buy signal early, so I thought this is good to go. Let me see some more validation and I'll jump on it. And so got on it there and kind of just sat tight. It wasn't too bad though. Usually you'll learn that the best trades, they tend to work out relatively quickly after you enter them, right? Like some of these other ones, like I'm looking at QuantStamp, kind of, I mean, it feels like forever. It's only been a day, not even a day, but it feels like forever since I've been sitting on the trade. And it's like usually when something starts to move, it starts to have momentum. And so you expect for them to work relatively quickly. And so you can see Stratus jumped in. This was a little bit of BTC pullback here that caused some of that, but didn't hit the stop, kind of tested it. Once it started to move higher and it was looking good, I was looking at moving the stop up a little bit there. And you can see overnight just held some momentum, kept going, looking pretty good. And at that point, it was trying to move the stop. And I think this is about when I reported this morning on the updates, and it was literally like an hour before the big green candle that moved higher. Move that, here we go. And so there's some more volume, kind of an early indicator showing up there. Big outside bar, and then it really started to hit. Oh, that's right. Last night it was right next to the target. Didn't take any there. And then it pulled back and it started to move higher again today. And then that was the big breakout. So pushed right through. Yeah, on Black Friday, they do have a good deal on TradingView. So we'll definitely post it for the group when they roll that out. If they roll that out again, that's a really good deal for what you get, by the way. And there's different levels, and I would definitely take advantage of that if you're not a premium subscriber to TradingView, especially if you use it often. If you're trading pretty actively, it's definitely worth it, in my opinion. So that was Stratus. Still looking good. Looks like it wants to continue to push higher. If you look at the daily charts, first target here was that basically 2,800. The next level up on this daily chart is around that 32. So that's the level I'd be watching if you're still writing this one up. Has room to go technically, right? I mean, RSI is just now barely peaking over that 70 mark. And so could certainly continue higher with the momentum we're seeing on the 4-hour chart. It is feeling a little extended, so which is why I just took the profits, and I'll look for a potential secondary entry, but it's at 86 RSI, just a lot of momentum. At best, it needs to just maybe go flat here, put a little bull flag in or something on the 4-hour chart. VeChain. We're looking at VeChain. VeChain was more of an early entry. It's still looking pretty good. I mean, had that big volume yesterday. Hasn't seen a whole lot of follow through, but not a lot of pullback either. Just kind of sitting tight. Here's the 4-hour chart. Still putting a little bit of a bull flag right above that 4-hour chart. So I'm going to be paying attention to this one. I'd like to see that next leg higher. If it can clear this little 190 level or so, that'll really be positive. There's some resistance right overhead, right? It's right at 193. So I'd like to see this guy push right through that. Then I'll start raising the stops. For now, I'm just keeping the stop right below here at this kind of low at this candle here. But what I liked about VeChain, VeChain tends to have these big rallies anyway. Let me clear some of this for us. And what I was paying attention to is, technically it's still in a downtrend, right? So this is absolutely aggressive. But I've been watching it for a potential sign of a reversal. And this was the first time you see one in about a week and a half or so. And this was a big bullish reversal, right? Bullish engulfing candle there on that candlestick pattern. If you can see, Price opened, undercut the low of the prior candle, and then rallied not only above the high of that candle, but above the high of multiple candles in the back day there. So usually a positive sign. And so you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost 9, 8 days that it kind of overtook here on that one move and on pretty decent volume. So liking that, it was enough for me to jump on at that point, and your stop is pretty clear, right? Just kind of the low of that candle. If it undercuts that, then it was a false move. But odds favor that it found a low there. So definitely one I'm watching. What was the other one we're on? Quantum. It's one I posted here recently. And again, similar to Stratus, right, in terms of the pullback entry. My signal was this candle here, and hasn't seen a whole lot of follow through, just kind of pushed higher, pushed down, push higher, push down. So we'll see if that's the low. On the daily chart, it still looks good. I'm thinking maybe it just needed a little bit more time to let this daily chart consolidate. You can see the 10 EMA is now catching up. And so as long as prices can hold, I'd like to see this one again. They're moving north, right? The moving averages are inverted. They're starting to fan out a little bit. Shorter term time frame is gaining momentum. This red day, was above average volume, but certainly not as high as the prior 2 days, and certainly not as high as this day. So looking for some follow through. We'll see if we can get it before I get stopped out on that one. And the last one is Ethos. EQX, still moving. I was hoping for it to move a little sooner than this, but I'm okay with it still. It's not too bad. Jumped in early. This, again, I was looking at this downtrend, and I was looking for a break above that. But when I did the risk reward, I was thinking, you know what, it'd be better to enter here just above this support and have a tighter stop than a smaller position when it breaks out with a wider stop. And so I did that. Ended up jumping in. I believe it was 60. What was it? 64.50. Let me check here real quick. Nope, that's not right. I think I posted the wrong one in the group. I did. I posted the wrong figures in the group. So when I posted the entry stop loss target for Ethos, I did the Quantstamp values. I had them on that same line. So that was not the right one. I believe it was 64.50 or something along those lines. But it pushed through right away, but then it hasn't seen a whole lot of follow through. You can see it rallied above, pulled right back, rallied back above, looked like it was about to get going again, and has been testing this little support level a couple times. Moving averages are still moving in the right direction, which is okay, which is why I'm kind of just letting it ride. But certainly would like to see a little bit more action on this one here soon. Kind of just sitting tight, still setting up a pretty good pattern. Looks like it wants to break out. Let me clear that line here. And just kind of keeping this most recent support level as my stop point. If you look at the daily charts, again, maybe that's all it needed was a little bit more time, letting these moving averages catch up, perhaps a little bit extended there on that daily chart. So all in all, it's still holding up okay. RSI is not too bad, has plenty of room to run on the daily chart. And the big picture just still looks good. I mean, just kind of turning the corner, building some momentum. And so I'd like to see this thing clear some of these resistance levels. If it does, it could really get going. And right now that's a good 20% above, right? So even there at that point would be a good profit-taking level, at least for part of it for me. And so that's what I'll be keeping an eye on, but still holding with it for now. Again, a nice breakout from this ascending triangle base here. You can see it broke out and it's consolidating another base right above that. And so good sign as long as it continues to hold up. What else here? So those are the ones I was looking at. Any names you guys want to look at before we get moving? If not, what I'll do is I'll start cycling through some of the charts, looking for potential setups and other names that I'm watching. And we'll start kind of building a little bit of a watch list for names to look at kind of in the next 1 to 3 days or so. But other than these right now, basically on the Binance side, I'm anything that's not on a trade is in BTC for me. But I do have other accounts that are USD pairs and so or USD exchanges. And I'm probably about 50% on that side, BTC and cash. So while BTC is kind of range bound, I'm okay with holding it here for now. We all know, and just that's why you keep stops in place, and I get all that. And here's the risk, right, with all of this is if BTC decides to just have a sharp move lower out of the range, these will get stopped out into BTC, but then you're going to have to manually either decide to just stay in BTC or move them out, right? And that's the challenge when you're trading the alts on the BTC pairs that don't have any kind of other exit point. So just something to keep in mind. Let's look at some of these names here. So Substratum. Nice. Okay, so this one had that big push higher here. This is on the 4-hour chart. Looks like it's rounding a little bit of a base and about to break out at this resistance point. Actually, technically has broken out. So that one's looking pretty good. Now, RSI on the 4-hour, it's not too bad. Still has room to go. MACD's turning higher. If we zoom in a little bit, let me see here before we zoom in. This is kind of your next target is that 1839, 1840 level, and then up here. So if we go to the 1 hour, you can see the 1 hour, it's getting a little overheated, and that's because you've had, 4 or 5 hours in a row of this. Now, this is a smaller cap name. Definitely could get going quick if some big volume starts coming in. And so if you're in it, it looks good here, definitely. If you're looking for a potential entry, this might not be a bad place, or if you can let this 1 hour cool off a little bit. It's breaking out now, so you could get a little bit of momentum. Let me do this here. If I jumped in here, you'd have to keep a stop. I mean, a logical stop on this 4-hour chart is going to be, at least around these moving averages, right? It could very easily just kind of pull right back. So if you kept a tight stop, I would say, at the low of this most recent candle, right? So that's going to be around 1754. It gives you about a 2% stop. That is super tight stop. So that's not bad. You can go wider if if you're comfortable. Obviously, the wider the stop, you got to manage your position size because you're exposing yourself to too much risk if you have a very wide stop in a very big position, right? So that's kind of the trade-off, right? Tighter stop, bigger position, wider stop, smaller position. So if you did like down here 10 EMA or just below, that's about 2.25%. So a 2-hour multiple gets you here, and so that's just above this most recent resistance, halfway through to the next level. It's about a 5% move. Definitely not unreasonable when it comes to a name like Sub, just because you look at the daily chart, right? 5% is nothing on a chart like this. It could very easily just blow right through that. So would not be against it here. This is actually looking pretty good. Nice little entry, relatively low risk. It's a little bit aggressive from a daily perspective because it's not necessarily trending up on these moving averages, but you can see here the price has been moving in the right direction for the last week or so. But you are going to come into some resistance here, but not bad. Good risk-reward area here at this point. All right, let's see here. Let's do ZIL. So ZIL, again, nice little multiple base forming here at the lows. Was trying to break out here earlier. You can see some pretty good volume, pushed it right through. And if we go to the daily real quick here, very flat base. Again, similar price action. The thing with these that I would be concerned about, let me zoom out here, is when you see a name that had such a big drop, and this is my bear goggles on because these are the type of entries I look for when I'm going short. You see this kind of big push lower, and then it just starts to rally and drift right into kind of this resistance here. You see this resistance level right there. For me, that's usually kind of if you're long, that's a profit-taking area for me. But until it starts to clear above that, I'm always cautious from going long on names like this, just because when I see these as kind of good short entries, right? If you could short it, that's what I'd be looking at, is kind of shorting, in and around this zone and expecting a break below that trend, or waiting for that trend to break and then going short there. So just keep an eye on that lower trend if you're on it, because that would be significant if it broke below that, in my opinion. But on the 4-hour charts, can't complain about this. This is a nice little base, definitely looking good. Some good buying volume coming in here as it's pushing through. but you're kind of in a little bit of a resistance zone here, right? Between this, what is that, 538 up to about 550. That's a little bit of a zone. If it starts to clear that, then it's going to look really good. And how far is that? I mean, that's nothing. That's 2%. So you're basically right there. You'd like to see this guy push right through that. 2%. It could do it. Come on, Zill. Stellar Lumens. Definitely one I was keeping an eye on here. We'll look at it a couple of ways. I think Andrew was asking me about this the other day, and I said, hey, it looks like maybe a potentially double bottom here, but I'd really wait for it to clear this this downtrend resistance line. And you can see it had that one green candle right into the moving averages, and that was it. This is the 4-hour chart, by the way. And look at the moving averages are inverting now, and it's starting to fan out. So it's really starting to lose some momentum and push lower here. So I still like it. Has that potential kind of being added surprise, but I would still be waiting at least for some sort of reclaiming of that downtrend line. Or if you saw like a big volume engulfing reversal candle right here, that might do it for me, right? That'd be a potential early entry point with a stop just below that candle. But those are the signals I'd be looking for in something like this. Big picture, I think it still looks good. Kind of just consolidating this big move. But, you know, Lumens is known to do that, right? It has these big pushes, sells off, big push. And right now it's just pushing right back to this moving average. So if it's going to hold, this is where we want to see it hold, right? This is a 22 EMA here, so we'll see if it can hold. But from a buy perspective, I'm kind of waiting for it to show some more volume. Zcash was doing something very similar, and it pushed through. You can see Zcash here, back to the 4-hour chart, and same type of action I was watching on Zcash. And then you can see here early this morning, big volume push higher, putting a little bit of a bull flag on this 4-hour chart, and kind of setting up a good secondary entry point right below a big breakout point on the daily chart. So if you zoom out and go to the daily chart, see this resistance here right around that 1943, 1942 level. It's bouncing right off the 10 EMA, pushing up the downtrend on above average volume there. So that's a good early signal. I like the way Zcash is looking here. Stellar was looking much stronger 2 days ago than Zcash, and now they kind of swapped places. So Zcash is definitely on the watch list right now. And I believe I have it flagged. If not, I should definitely have it flagged. I don't have it flagged. Maybe I have it flagged. Let me see. Yeah, I do. Okay. So definitely on there. And I may consider taking an entry on this one here. So I don't want to overload. Feels like I have too many trades now. It's the challenge you have when you start seeing setups, multiple setups, right? Which one do you take? But Zcash is looking good. All right, let's keep going. Vibe. Well, there's two vibes. Looking at Vibrate, the one you're asking about. And so the pros and the cons here on this daily chart clearly is trending higher, right? The moving averages are moving up. Good momentum there. I don't like this big outside reversal that's happening today, right? You see this big volume on that move lower. Just signifies a lot of profit taking. But if you look at the characteristics of this one, I mean, that's kind of normal. You get these big wicks, big reversal, big wick, big pushback. So that's not out of the realm of normal price action for this. Any other name, I'd be really cautious with that type of price action. But, you know, it's been showing, you know, the ability to bounce off of this moving average zone. So that would potentially set up a good secondary entry point if you're looking at it. On the 1-hour chart, I mean, that's crazy volume there. Big wick too. So not sure what's going on there. I haven't done any looking into this guy. Had that big breakout, big reversals. So just be cautious on this one. You know, I'd probably watch these most recent lows. If it undercuts that, that's probably going to be negative for this guy. Ripple. Yeah, Ripple was moving yesterday. Let's see here. Or 2 days ago, maybe. I didn't follow up on it. How did Ripple do? So similar to VeChain, right? Where it had that big push higher right off the lows, big volume. And this is actually looking nice right here. A little bit of a bull flag forming on this 4-hour chart, just getting real quiet following that big volume spike. And so the way I like to approach these is I kind of give them a little bit of room to the upside. And there's two ways to do it, right? You can either, like if you're looking to buy it, for example, this is a good example, right? This is my approach when I try to buy something that's pulling back. This is the buy zone from a moving average perspective, right? And it's basically there. It's letting the moving averages catch up. It's right there. So you can either buy it preemptively, thinking that maybe the stop, the low, and then you just put your stop, some percent below that moving average. So in this case, that'd basically be a 1% stop. Very tight, not unreasonable, right? So if you wanted to preempt it, that's the risk, is you're kind of guessing that's the low. The other way to do it is using price action. And so what I would do is look at, the prior two candles and say something like, if it closes above the high of that candle or the close of that candle or this price point there, then I'm going to take it because that's going to show me that the price is moving higher and it's going higher than the prior 4 hours. The alternative way would be a break above this downtrend line. And you can see in that example, it would do both at the same time, right? It would take out the highs of these other candles as well as the downtrend line. And so that would be a good strategy because you're at least going off of some confirmation. And then at that case, you would set your stop right below the swing low or just a little bit below that, right? Considering how tight this would be of a stop, that's where I would put my stop there. So if I went long, let's say at 71, let's call it 71.60, then a stop here would be, I love how it like explodes this out 50 bars. Stop here would still only be less than 1.5%. So that would be a good early entry point and aggressive early buy point. In that case, that's a good conditional buy. I'd rather always take a manual entry point than a conditional buy, but that's not bad. And then of course on the upside, let's go to this. Look how flat and tight this is, right? So if it pushes through that, I mean, there's a good chance you're going to be catching kind of a little bit of a push higher. First resistance is going to be at this level here, which is also the top of this wick. That's not a very big move, right? That's 3%. And then next resistance would be up around here. That's more like 10%. That's not bad, more like it. And with that tight of a stop, I mean, that's a fabulous risk reward ratio, right? 7.6, even on a 10% trade. So that's good because you can take a bigger position. You got a really tight stop. And if you're heavy on a position that gives you 10%, 15%, not bad, right? And so Ripple's looking pretty good. All right, let me skip ahead because I've already done a couple of those for you guys, and I'll do ontology and then we'll come back. So let's put Ripple on the watch list too, because I like the way it's looking there. Let me go back real quick. Definitely looking good here. I don't believe I have it on the watch list. I'm going to start clearing some of these names, by the way. Here we go. All right. So Stellar Lumens, we just did Lumens, and was talking about kind of the lows. I'd be basically waiting for the downtrend to be broken that it's been living under, right? So I'd be waiting for that. Now it's right at the daily 22 EMA. So if it's going to bounce, ideally, this is where you want to see it bounce. I'm going to take BAT off for now just because I missed that. There's no point in chasing that. I'm going to take Lumens off for now. Let's do Wax here real quick and we'll jump to ontology. So Wax was one I posted on the charts yesterday. It's still setting up. The challenge with Wax is it's only on Bittrex. I think it's on Bitfinex too, but volume is not as high. And so that's really the challenge. So if you're not trading on Bittrex, then probably nothing to do here on this guy. But I like the way it's consolidating here. The daily chart looks good. Had that big volume breakout, pulling right back, letting these moving averages catch up. Still holding above that breakout point. And if it can hold up here, then I expect it would clear this resistance, which was the most recent high, and then start pushing higher. And could make for a decent trade. I mean, even from this point up, right, that's 10% just, or 9%. And then anywhere in here, right, you're talking double digits up to here is about 28%. So definitely one that's on the watch list. Again, very similar price action, had that move higher, just trying to consolidate here, letting these moving averages catch up. MACD's no, well, maybe it's starting to turn finally. And so it's kind of lining up. So wax. All right. Ontology. Is this up? So looking at ontology here, I'm going to zoom out and do the daily chart first. And again, this one has been known to have those big moves higher, just like VeChain. But again, it's just drifting lower after that big push lower here, right? You see that's moved down and then just hasn't been able to recover from that. Now, it didn't just fall off the map either, but this is not exactly looking bullish. And so if I was watching this one, that's really the level I'd be watching is right there, right? The base of this, which is almost lining up with the tops of these wicks right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. That might help. And so clearing that resistance would be positive because it would clear these moving averages. It would clear this most recent consolidation and start at least getting back above the upper half of that range there. Now on the daily chart, again, big flat chart, right? If you zoom out, it's not a lot happening here. How big is that range? And that's from here to here, you're talking about 5-6%. So, not tiny, but not exactly a massive range either. So it could certainly have that big breakout move like we've seen in the past, right? You saw big here, 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 here. But that's really the level I'd be watching. Again, unless you see some other buy signal, right? So like a bullish engulfing candle here at these lows maybe would trigger an early entry for me with a tight stop. So that's another way to do it. If you see kind of a big reversal here, but I'd have to see volume on a name on something like that, right? So here's a good example. Right, very similar price action, right? You saw this kind of move lower, and then it gives you this big engulfing candle above, not even above average volume there. So maybe it's not that best of an example. This would be confirmation. I'd jump in after that point, right? So that's something you would look at. All right, so that's ontology. Let me look at it from the USD pair. It's probably not going to look too good if it's drifting versus BTC there. Yeah, similar, right? It's kind of that rollover top here, so similar price action. Okay, Lisk. Let's do Lisk. Lisk was showing some action earlier. Let me see here. Here's the 4-hour chart. So I had that big push on the 4-hour chart. You can see here some of that volume came in and it's just kind of sitting tight, still above that breakout point on the 4-hour chart. Here's the resistance level that it cleared. So not bad from that perspective, right? Still looking pretty good. Had this base pushed higher and just been sitting flat since then, really kind of just setting up for another potential leg higher. If you zoom out a little bit, you can see the next big resistance level is between here and here. So that's kind of your next target. That's not really that far higher. How much are we talking about here? Yeah, that's like 4%, right? So it's a small move above where we're at now. If you go to the daily chart, however, this move was good, pushed it right through that 10 EMA, but moving averages are still inverted. It's probably a little tough to see in the chart there, but you can see the 10 is now starting to go higher. So if price starts to move through this resistance level, you would expect to see that 10 EMA catch up very quickly and get back above the 22. At that point, you would have some good confirmation. So not bad. If you like it here, you wanted to kind of look at it for an early move. This is a good buy zone if you didn't already jump in. And I really would be watching this reversal candle as your stop point, right? If it starts to undo all of this, then it's a failed breakout in my opinion. So I'd be watching this candle here, this big volume candle. If it undercuts that, then it needs more time. ICX, let's see here. Let's go to the daily chart here. Man, so many of these charts are just ready to rock, aren't they? Bitcoin could only just break out and move higher. So many of these charts are like, they're just sitting tight. Not exactly a trending environment. But again, just kind of vacillating back and forth. There's really not a lot to go off here versus the daily chart. I mean, look at the weekly chart. Wow. ICX, that's a flat weekly chart. How many weeks is that? 6 weeks of just pretty tight action there. If you go to the 4-hour here, you could have said, hey, it's breaking out back here. And, we did jump on it here. I remember I was trading this couple times. Well, I was trading it back here, had that breakout, and then BTC rolled over and killed the trade. But kind of just back to that range, right? Just back and forth, back and forth. It feels like it may have found a low on that daily chart, definitely putting in a little bit of an accumulation zone here. But now you want to see some good upside momentum follow through. Big range, but if it breaks out of that on the BTC side, then I really think you could see some momentum going from here up. That's what, about 7% higher. So moving above that, you could really see this guy move and even just get into this most recent high. Even just a bounce up to that is 22%. So from a trading perspective, that would be a decent trade. From a long-term hold, I mean, if you like ICX, and I do, I think from a long-term perspective, I think it's good. This is where you start paying attention to some of these names when they start accumulating like this. Been consolidating since 1979. Let's see here. Real quick, I'm going to answer some other questions here. When are you planning to buy for the longer term? I'm starting to look at that now, to be honest, just because some of these names are starting to really shape up. You know, it's hard to tell if, well, it's absolutely hard to tell if the bear is done, right? If you look at the big picture, sorry about your eyes there. You know, if you look at the big picture, I mean, there's nothing here telling you that the bear is over. What we could be seeing is a big accumulation zone, especially on that weekly chart, right? That's a bad example here. So on the weekly chart, could certainly be a big accumulation zone, but there's nothing here signifying that the end is near. But from that perspective, I think a lot of the alts have bottomed out versus BTC. And so the way I view it is, you know, if I have an altcoin that has the potential to run 50, 80% or something crazy like that versus Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has a potential to fall another 10 to 15%, would I make that trade, right? And to me, I would, right? I mean, not everybody would, but for me, if you look at the risk reward ratio, if I hold BTC here and it drops down to 50, 5,200, that's a 20% drop. Obviously, that would kill the alts, but if Bitcoin does bottom here or just drops a little bit halfway through that, but in the meantime, I've got alts that are doing stuff like this, right? Let's go to Salt, for example. They're bottoming out, and they're up, even with the pullback, up 80% from the lows. Then that's a worthy enough risk reward ratio for me. So short answer is I'm starting to look at that now. I'm thinking a lot of these alts have found a good low, and they're certainly not running crazy. But if you look at names like Quantum, you look at ICX, you look at Neo, right, versus BTC, a lot of them, right? Link has already been on a tear, so I think it's worth at least part of the portfolio moving back into alts. Okay, let's see here. Those are all the names that you guys gave me. Let's go through some of these other ones real quick here. I'm going to pull up the alerts to see if anything has come through here while we've been meeting. Let's see. Pearl on KuCoin. Storm. I think somebody posted a chart of Storm recently. Walton, that one was moving. We'll look at that guy. Slash. Michael, we're going to look at the Slash. Apparently it's on the move. All right, let's see here. It's a ticker. Apparently, it just doesn't have a name. It's at 1601 BTC. Strat Komodo was moving. Power Cloak. I've been seeing Cloak. Man, that's a name from yesteryear. I probably wouldn't buy it, but let's go look at it. Cloak. Yeah, you get these big spikes definitely moving here today. So a little bit of a pullback. If you want to do a pullback entry trade, there you go. It's definitely one to watch at these big moves. I got 20% in 2 hours. It's a big move. All right, Storm. Let me go here. Storm Strat. MDA is moving again. Let's go look at that guy first. Just a bounce off the low. Not exactly a big move. Some good volume came in, so maybe it's done. It did find a little bit of a low here on this guy. I don't know if it's going to give you another massive run like it did last time, but who knows, right? But had this move, trying to consolidate. Really, I'd be watching kind of this downtrend on something like this, right? And it's getting close, so we'll see which way it breaks out. Storm. Nice move on Storm, clearing some resistance here today. Going to that daily chart, you can see it's coming off the lows here. So very nice, pushing higher there. And a lot of these have been signaling earlier, right? So if you look at something like a Storm, right, it was already overbought 3 days ago, which means it had a big push. It had a bullish cloud exit. It was on the move. And so it certainly has been signaling some action here recently. Let me go to, all right, it was on the move 3 days ago. And that was this candle here, right? That was back here. So it gives you these early indicators. You can see that big volume push there a few days back. Where was that? Here we go. And so this is the first time we started seeing it come across the on the move alert. It was right here. And so that was the first time it came across the on the move. Gave you a big push right to resistance. Nice consolidation breaking out today. Again, a very low volume name. Just tough to jump on those. When I see charts like that, that's, for me, it's just really liquid. But moving higher today, so not too bad here. Let's see what else. So we did Cloak. We did, let me scroll back here a little bit today. ARK. Verge. There's a name from yesteryear. Let's go look at ARK. Looking at ARK here, I'm going to take some of these old markings off here. So looks like it's trying to break out here. A little consolidation showing up here on this daily, kind of edging out above closing prices there. So that looks good. All right, you can see this volume coming in here. Nice little consolidation for about a week and pushing right through today. So definitely looking pretty good from that perspective. So on the 4-hour chart here, I mean, this is, let's get some big movement, some big wicks on that daily. See if we can hold up. Verge. Another low volume name these days. Remember what Verge was like going to be the next Bitcoin? Verge, man, look at that chart went flat. So, ish. Let's move on to the next one. Encash, that one's been looking pretty good. We'll take a look at that guy. ARN. Okay. Encash, look at that volume coming off the lows. So definitely want to keep an eye on there. Get another lower volume name on the shorter time frames, but hard to trade those guys. What's Encash's market cap these days? Man, this guy's right at the lows. How flat that is. I mean, these are nice if you put a small position into them. They're a little bit more liquid, but percent-wise, they can really get going. Encash, $28 million market cap. Small guy. So what do I think about CoinGee versus TradingView? I use TradingView a lot. I mean, I live on TradingView, and I use CoinGee maybe a few times a week, right? So my preference is certainly TradingView for a lot of reasons. One, just because of the multiple markets that I can access through here, right? So if I search here, I can do stocks, futures, forex, all that fun stuff. So I use it for that. I like the scripting. I can write my own scripts and indicators and stuff like that. You can modify. There's this library of existing ones that people can post and all that fun stuff. So there's just so much that I like from that perspective. The charting, it feels pretty good from both angles. I mean, the charting is basically the same. CoinGee basically runs TradingView charting type of stuff. CoinGee is nice because it gives you some other crypto exchanges that are not on TradingView. So if you're purely crypto, that's good from that perspective. So if you're purely crypto and you're looking just for one, the problem is CoinGee is a paid version, and TradingView you can at least get a free version. So if you had to pick one, I would say just pick the CoinGee one, pay for it, and then use a free TradingView. I pay for both, but I use TradingView a lot more. It's definitely worth it. I really like it. All right. Verge is a Bitcoin important. Let's see. We did Poly. We'll look at it again if we come back here. Andrew, it's your anniversary. All right. Is it Marta or Martha? Marta? Okay, let's see here. We did. I'm gonna probably just take Link off of my watch list. It's moved out. Still looking good. Neblio was one I had, and it's still looking pretty good. Trying to pull back here a little bit on this 4-hour chart. It had a good breakout. You can see cleared resistance here, and from that breakout point, and it went up quick 14%. Pulling back here right now. We'll see if it can push higher here. So, hey Marta, Node Investor here. Happy anniversary. All right, Andrew. It's gonna be $400. 0x. It's gonna come off here. I'm gonna try to thin this out so we can summarize here right at the end. Kind of narrow down the list. I'm gonna do Quantum BTC. Either pair right now is pretty good. All right, you're right. It's their anniversary. I'll let it go this time. That was a freebie. Oh yeah, Neo. So let's look at Neo. I was liking Neo. So Neo daily, right? If you look at Neo on the daily chart, again, like some of these others, like Ontology and such, had this break lower, and it's just kind of been bouncing right into this resistance level here. So got to clear that for me to really kind of change the tone. But in the near term, the last couple of days, I'm liking the action, kind of just sitting tight here. If you go to the 4-hour charts, you know, very flat, very range bound. So keep an eye on Neo. I think if BTC gets going, this is going to be one that watch. Here's the Neo BTC pair. Again, just kind of similar action. Level I'd be looking at early entry, maybe clearing above that. If you wanted to wait for that to be cleared, probably would move through both in the same shot because that's only 1% and 1.9, so basically 2%. So Neo's looking pretty good from that perspective. But again, it's going to be bouncing right into resistance here. So got to get above that, but one to keep an eye on just because I think it's flattening out here, just like some of these others. EOS. Very similar type chart as well. Looking at that one, but this one's and so many of these had this day, right? That red day, smack down, and then just kind of flat since then, right? Nothing has happened since then on these guys. So it's been mostly the smaller mid cap names, but I think they'll have their turn too. So one to keep an eye on. Same story though. You got to see this guy move above range here. Until it gets above that, it's kind of a caution one. I probably wouldn't preempt it if it were me. I mean, I'm just not going to preempt some of these moves. I'd rather just wait for some of these other ones that are looking a lot stronger. OMG was looking pretty good. So again, similar action, had that big breakout, but this one has managed to kind of work its way back up to this range, and moving averages are looking good there. If you go to the 4-hour charts, clearing a little bit of resistance here, trying to get going. So one to keep an eye on here. I like the way it's looking. If we look at OMG on the BTC pair, it's kind of still battling this little bit of a range here, getting a little symmetrical right in this consolidation. Looking back here, this was the consolidation right back at that point. So volume looks a lot better here. BTC moving. Volume looks a lot better here, so definitely one I'd be watching. Let's go to BTC real quick. Trying to get going. A little bit of movement. You know, until I see another $100 move up or something, I'm not really, you know, you had these moves. It looked like it was going to get going yesterday, and then today it looked like it was going to break down. It's just range bound. Nothing to get excited about. ICX, Neblio. All right, let's keep going here. So those are the handful we did here today. Let me see if there's, oh, Dash. We posted the Dash chart yesterday, and we were talking about it on the general thread. And I said, hey, it's bumping right up to that 10 EMA on that daily. Just something I'd be watching. But it looked good from the 4-hour chart, and it's still moving. Just kind of edging higher. So not bad. And this is one where you could put a really tight stop just because it was at the time. I think it was here when they posted it, but you're talking like 2%, maybe 3%, right? That's a very tight stop, especially for a chart like this where it's right near the lows. So Dash. All right. ARN, GVT still going. Augur had a pretty good move. We'll go take a look at that chart. Ethereum Classic. It's okay. You can say it. Ethereum Classic and Doge are leading the markets. It's that the two big winners of 2018, Ethereum Classic and Doge. Let's go take a look at that one real quick. Yeah, I don't know what that big push was about a day ago, but pulling right back in. We'll see. Again, look at where it pushed right into, right? So moved right into this moving average, pulling right back. So far, just hasn't been able to get above this resistance. So we'll see if it can finally turn the corner. That was some good volume coming in, but it's kind of given up that entire move, and price is like at the must-hold level now, right? It's got to turn the corner here for it to even have a remotely good chance of looking better. Here, let me open up CoinED on the other window. We'll pull up Dragon real quick. There we go. Let's see here. Let me load some defaults. It's flashed across a few times here, and it looks like wanting to get going. And right here, I remember looking at it last week, I believe, during the live stream, and almost wanted to do a little double bottom, but didn't really follow through. Change that. I kind of saw that. Looked like it was pushing higher here, but then it failed right at that same resistance level. So hasn't really done a whole lot until it gets above that. I just kind of wait on this one. I'd be cautious. So not a lot of follow through. That's the problem with this one here. Kind of sitting tight. All right. So right now on the list here, we went through the open trades that I have right now. Ethos still looking pretty good. ICX flat, like a lot of these. Neo, EOS, Ontology, definitely something to watch. Neblio has had a nice breakout and is pulling back right now. So on the radar, OMG is trying to edge out. And if I liked OMG here, if I was looking for a trade, this is probably an entry point now, in my opinion, with a relatively tight stop, right? You'd be looking at maybe the swing low. That puts it at around a 3.5% stop. So not bad. And then if your target is this first resistance level, that's a 2-1 ratio there. It's only a 7% move, but still within the 2R multiple. And then above that, you're looking at up here, and this is on the USD, so right around $4. And so at that point, you're looking at 14% move or so. So OMG looks good. Poly still looks good. Waiting for it to show a little bit more follow through, but just kind of sitting tight. I think I like the way it looks here. Just this base, right? Pulled back, rallied, pulled back, quiet volume. And the thing I like about these, when you're looking at these consolidations, right, the big volume is on the way up. And then during this consolidation, look at the low of the consolidation, right? There was very little sell volume at the low. And then as it started to push higher, the volume increase came back. And so as price expands, you get volume increases, price contracts, volume dies off. That's what you want to see. Now, it doesn't mean they always work, but it puts the odds in your favor. And so now that it's pulling back, that was really the reason for my entry, is it was breaking this little downtrend. So to me, I'm treating it like a cup and handle. And once it starts to break the cup or the handle part, the pullback, that's my entry point. It could still materialize into a ascending triangle type of base. Sorry, I keep clicking the wrong button. Hold on. There. And so it could be an ascending triangle base, right, where you have this rally, you got a low, you got a rally, maybe another higher low, and you can see kind of one of these pull back and then go, right? So that's another potential scenario if it doesn't break out here. Bitcoin breaking out. Man, these days, $2 move on Bitcoin is exciting. Sets off all my triggers when it moves more than $5. Ooh. Yes. Not bad. Definitely moving. Admittedly, one I don't really watch a whole lot, but yeah, definitely moving. Looks like it's about to break out of this little range here. So want to keep an eye on. Smaller volume, though. All right, what else? We had QuantStamp. I'm still holding on this one. I like this tight symmetrical range and waiting for some volume to come back in and push this guy higher. Quantum, barely holding up. We'll see if it can hold. Stratus, looking for a pullback there. VeChain, a little bit of a bull flag on that 4-hour. Wax, maybe setting up again. Zcash, looking pretty good here following this breakout. I think Zcash is viable. Or viable within this consolidation down here with a stop basically right at this low, this swing low. And so if we do that, you're looking at about a 3% stop. And, you know, it sounds like a lot. It depends on your trading style, but 3% is nothing. I mean, that's a tight stop. Obviously, if you have 10 3% stop trades and they all get stopped out, that's a lot. So don't do that. Speaking of which, I'm going to post these. I'm trying to figure out how to post them on Slack. I think I got to change the privacy settings and the rights, but there's some tutorial classes. If you have access to these Node Insider alerts, you already have it, but there's some risk management courses that I think are worth sharing with the group right now. And then I also put an edited version of the on the move alerts MACD pullback entry strategy. And so I posted that. It's an edited version of the live stream we did last week, covering just the strategy part. So I'm going to see if I can find a way to share those on the Slack, at least for a little bit, and then I'll take them off. But those are out there for those that have access to this. All right, let's cycle through some of these big cap USD pairs, and then we'll go from there. I'm not expecting a whole lot just because BTC's kind of been sitting tight, and these have as well. I'm gonna go 4-hour chart for now. So there's Cardano, again, the laggard of the group here. Bitcoin Cash had that big push higher, looked like it wanted to get going, but just kind of sitting tight here. That was Tether Day. Bitcoin Cash, BNB, not a whole lot, just kind of sitting here on the ledge. We already looked at Bitcoin. We looked at Dash. Dash is not too shabby here. EOS sitting tight. Ethereum Classic, we looked at that. We looked at ETH. We looked at Icon. IOTA. Look at that daily chart. IOTA still not happening on IOTA. Litecoin, same thing. Not a whole lot. Neo, I'm liking that setup potentially. OMG is looking pretty good off the lows. See if we can get some follow through. Ontology, tight. Quantum, still holding up. See if we can get some more. Tron, a little bit of rollover action here on this daily chart here. Looking at Tron 4-hour, not a whole lot, just bouncing around the moving averages, right into resistance too. VeChain, we covered that. And Lumens. Monero. Yeah, Monero's been looking pretty good here. Again, it's got a ways to go in terms of, let me find it somewhere else here. XMR. More. $1 on Bitfinex. It's got a ways to go from resistance level perspective, right? Like it has bounced right into this twice and rolled over. So one to keep an eye on, but it's trying to set up here. If we can break right through, that'll be positive. This is Monero dollar on Bitfinex, and it's hilarious that they say dollar when they're USD, but USDT. So about 2 to 4% on that guy. Dragon. What happened with Dragon? Is it moving? Didn't we look at this one? And Ripple. Ripple was on the list. We didn't add Ripple. We did BTC, right? Yep. Ripple BTC. I'm liking Ripple BTC here. So looking pretty good. Same on the USD pair, but looking pretty good here. Nice tight stop. Potential entry point right above this downtrend. So, all right. And then Zcash. We talked to Zcash. I've been watching the true USD chart, but not a whole lot happening. I guess that's a good thing. Just sitting tight. So that's that. So what I'll do now is, for example, let's say, off of the list we just flagged, right? Trades that I'm not already on. I would say Zcash, Ripple are probably the two that would interest me the most here on this particular list. Let me look through the list real quick. Yeah, near term, maybe Neblio, right? Just has some good strength. And so what I would do is, once I get the list, once I've done the scans, let's go with Ripple. I would do one of two things, right? I would either put an alert or put a buy stop order somewhere. In the case of Ripple, it'll probably just be an alert. But what I'll do here is I'll do it one of two ways. Either do a price alert. So let's say like at 71.60, I can say, give me a buy price, and you can just, the way I do it is, I'll do crossing, and I'll just, only once on those buy price alerts. If it's a trend line, for example, like here, then I can do an alert that way. And I'll say once per bar, because if it breaks through and pulls right back in, I still want the alert to be active. So I'll say crossing up once per bar. And on those, I don't send it to me, but you could have it sent to your email, your phone, or whatever. And then you can adjust this bar if you want to, and it'll adjust your alert as well. So that's one way to do it. And so that's what I'll usually do on those type of names, and just have an alert set. So when it crosses, and so in this case, if Ripple decides to do one of these, pull back further and then break through, then I'll get an alert here even before it crosses my price alert that I just set. So that's a good way to do it on those trend line alerts. And there's so many ways to set alerts on TradingView. You can do it on an indicator. You can do it on a specific level. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to do it. You can do it on a channel, price channel, when it exits or enters. So that's what I would do. So I've got VeChain or Ripple there. Whoops, I just took off Zcash. So I would do Zcash. Honestly, Zcash is probably, for me, would be buyable now that it's hit this moving average with the stop down here. So if I wanted it, I'd have to just jump on it now. It's a little hot on the 1 hour RSI still, so just keep that in mind. I mean, it went right up here. It's pulled back a little bit, so, but it doesn't mean it can't keep going, right? I mean, you saw back here, it went for a little bit. But that's a nice little bull flag forming. 4 hour has plenty of room to go to the upside if it wanted to, prime for a breakout. So those are probably my two top choices right now. Stratus has the momentum behind it, but higher risk here, obviously. So I'm not sure I would jump in on Stratus there. OMG is probably buyable here. Neblio, Ethos still going. Poly, all right. go through some of these other ones here very quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. Aeon, ARK. We talked ARK. ARK's not bad here. Dash, Decred. Remember Decred? Had that big push higher on the listing. Potential secondary entry. You should have put Decred on the list. Let me add it to the flag list. Decred had that big push, pulling back. Now, these are always challenging because it's a news event, right? So it's like, okay, was that enough to kick off a rally, or was that the whole move, right? And generally, that's the whole move. So just know that. But could see some more follow through, at least one more leg higher now that it's had this pullback. And this is a better risk reward entry at that point. At least you have a tighter stop. It's kind of turning the corner there. Let's see, Digibytes, not a whole lot happening there yet. DigixDAO, Enigma still trying to break out. I think this was one of the charts we had shown a setup on. Let's see, Link, Nano, little symmetrical panel triangle on Nano here. Probably a good one to watch for a potential breakout. Throw that on the list. I'll put an alert on this trend line here. Nano. All right, we talked Encash. Knowles. I got to clear some of these names. 2KCs, that's still going. Nope, still pulling back here a little bit. QuantStamp holding that trade right now. Quantum on the trade. Augur, we missed Augur. I meant to talk about Augur here. And this had a big breakout. So this is the 4-hour chart. You can see that one had that big push yesterday. Not sure what drove that, if those news or anything, but big move off the lows on the daily. So Augur has room to run still on the daily. I think I'll be looking at it. Probably here is the next level. So still another 10% or so. Stratus, we talked Stratus, Stellar, Tron, VeChain. Oh, WANChain. WANChain was moving earlier. Not quite breaking out yet, but still there. Moving higher on the 1 hour at least, so getting some early momentum there. And Walton. NAM. Monero. All right, so that's it. ZIL, we talked ZIL. Yeah, not too bad either. Looks like it's trying to push higher. Somebody asked about Substratum. That looked good. Go. Maybe Go's consolidating here. Salt. Still pulling back. All right, so that's the list for now. I mean, there's plenty there. You know, there's quite a few there moving. Let's do a few more here. From a different point of view, we talked Storm. I'm just going to quickly scan some of these other ones. We didn't do ARN. Let me look at that one. Sirin, SRN. All right. GBT, QSP, Mana. Mana had a little bit of a move the other day. SRN. Not bad. Again, a small cap, low volume name. Man, micro cap. What's SRN these days? $17 million. There you go. So SRN maybe moving off the low there. Or was the other one we said? ARN. Oh, not bad. Now this one had that big push last week and maybe setting up again here in the big picture. Let me zoom out to the daily chart here. Almost say that's a nice little ascending triangle forming on ARN. I'd be looking at an early entry here basically before it breaks out the old highs. So not too bad. Moving averages are still going higher here. MACD looks like it's starting to turn the corner. Good volume coming in today. Not too shabby on the ARN. This is, you know, this would basically be my entry now if I wanted to buy this one here, just because technically it's clear on this 4 hour, right? I always like to buy when it clears the lower resistance. I don't wait for it to clear the old high on an ascending triangle. That's kind of like a lower ascending triangle. This is a very common pattern. So you see a run up and then it pulls back and then the highs are below the original high. Those I prefer because when it breaks higher, you kind of get an early entry before it clears this level here. Obviously, that's your resistance level you got to pay attention to, but looks like it's pushing through right now. And so on something like this, you know, let's say if I jumped on it here, the most I'd give it would be this swing low. If it breaks below that, that invalidates the reason for entering the trade. And so that's your logical place in the chart to put a stop loss. Now, the question you have to ask yourself, is that too wide of a stop? Now, for me, 12, 13%, that's probably too wide. Obviously, you'd have to make it a smaller position if you want that wide. Plus, the challenge with something that wide is the risk-reward ratio, right? That means for it to be worth it, I need a 24, 26% upside for the R multiple to make sense. And so that's the next question you got to ask is, how likely, how reasonable is it to expect for a 25, 26% move out of something like this? Now, on a name like this, is it possible? Yeah. I mean, if you look at these moves, right, that's 50% there, that's 70% there, asking for a 25% move. It's in line with the characteristics of this particular name, but I would personally want to go with a little bit of a tighter stop, right? So in that case, then I probably wouldn't give it that much. I would go with maybe the 22 EMA on the 4-hour, which is also the top here, now support. Something like that gives me more of a 7% stop. Now I got a 3.6 R multiple if it gets that high, but I don't need it to get that high, right? I could even just take it at the prior highs at 70% gain, still over my 2R, not too bad. So higher volume name, higher risk name, but could really get going. Not too bad. I mean, it's got the momentum. Very strong on that daily chart. Yeah. It's right at resistance, so if we can clear that, that'd be good. ARN, interesting. All right, let's see, Raven. Personally, I think it's done, but Raven has the advantage of, you know, kind of basically being at new highs here, and probably not a lot of bag holders that bought at 60% higher prices. And so that's good. It definitely has consolidated big volume today. So maybe it's going to go more. I mean, that's amazing, but had that big push here today, paused lower, a little bit of a bull flag on that 4-hour chart after finding a low. So we'll see if it can keep going. I mean, from here down to the low though, that's 20%. It's a wide move, and it's a big pop earlier today. So see on the hourlies, that's about 12% to that point. So looks like it may be putting in a little bit of a flag pattern here on this hourly. Not too bad here. Be watching that. But I think this one's just higher risk, but it has the momentum behind it, so it could certainly keep going. Let's see here, BNB, Decred, we talked that. Neo, we already talked Neo. Dent. Oh man, it's the end of the run when Dent starts moving. No offense to you, Dent holders. Dent's moving. It's okay, it usually needs to move for about a week or so, and then it's the end of the run. Okay. Any other ones? Let's look at some cloud exits. I want to see these. I haven't looked at these in a long time. And for this, I'm going to do some Ichimoku for those of you that follow the Ichimoku way. You can see clearly trendless, right? Clouds flat, prices just up and above, all over that. So let's look at some that have exited, see if there's any trending names. Nano, we looked at Nano. That's actually looking pretty good. Pivx, all right. Monero, let's look at some of those guys on the Ichimoku version here. So if we look at Nano, 4-hour, did get above the cloud, so that's positive there. And you got a forecasting a bullish Kumo twist, right? That's this guy here. Cloud's about to go from red to green. The negative here is, right, the cloud's like still drifting lower. So it's just now turning the corner. And me see here. We have a bullish TK cross back here, so that's positive, right? You got the blue line here crossing above the Kijun-sen. That's positive. We had a cloud-to-cloud exit, so not bad. So Nano was on the list for other reasons, but it certainly lines up here from the Ichimoku perspective. And so if you're trading this, I mean, there's a lot of different strategies you can use with this indicator. But one example would be using cloud or TK lines for support resistance. And so in this example, you can see these wicks down here. It's kind of hard to see, but they're hitting the bottom of that cloud. That would be your support, as well as this line here, right? And that line should start to tick up here if prices start to move. So that would be a support level. But they tend to be a little bit wider than normal. So if you look at this, right, that's not bad on Nano. That's 3% move. That'd be your support level if you wanted to jump on Nano. Let's look at how it looks on Monero. Monero looked like it had a nice little edge to edge, found some resistance, pulled right back. And so another way to look at it is if you have a crossover here, it hit the edge, it's pulling right back in. You can look to buy at these points right here, right? It's right at the Kijun-sen, it's right above the cloud. And so that's a good support level. And ideally, that's where you would make an entry and expect for it to push through and exit the cloud. Not forecasting a twist yet, but getting close there on Monero, but not too bad here, because then if you buy the dip per se, and it's not exactly bullish either, right? Price is living below the cloud. That means it's trending lower, so it's not exactly bullish. But if you bought the dip, you would keep your stop just right here. So that's like 1%, 2% with an upside on a cloud exit. So you're talking about, you know, only 3%. Very tight. And that's the thing with most of these right now on Ichimoku is they're kind of not really trending, right? A lot of these names aren't. It's not like back here where that's trending lower. You can see clearly trending lower. It's been a long time since we trended higher. Here's a good trend higher. See if it pushes through. All right, let's do a couple more on Ichi. I'm gonna just scan for kind of the more common bigger cap names. Cycoin. We did Monero, Walton. Take a look at it from that perspective. Kumo Twist sounds like a wrestling move. P-Toy. Oh man, there's a name from yesteryear. Power, Stratus. Interesting. Stratus did a bullish cloud exit at 23.50. I believe that's where my entry point was on that trade. Holy moly. Yeah, so you can see, so here's a nice example of Ichimoku playing out well on this guy. And so there was your bullish cloud exit. The signal came as this guy pushed higher, and you can see it pulled right back. Maybe hard to see here, but look at how it's look at how it pulled right back to the top of the cloud, also to the Kijun-sen line, that blue line right there. That's where it found support, and then it pushed higher off of that. And that was really my buy signal. That's where I jumped in, but I was using price action and not this indicator. Pretty nice. Pretty nice to see that played out that way. If you want to learn more about Ichimoku, ask Michael, who's on the stream. He's an expert. He's the one that put together these alerts, by the way, for the Ichi stuff. But there's some pretty good resources out there on YouTube that are free. I'll post them again. I know we've posted them in the past for those that are interested. The only thing I would caution is it's a strategy, right? It's a strategy that's based around a particular indicator. And so I would, when it comes to trading strategies, consistency is the key, right? There's a lot of times I'll see some charts out there on TradingView or on YouTube or wherever, and they look like this, right? They've got like these indicators, and they've got Ichi on here, and then they've got pivot points and daily pivots, and they've got sequential counts, and they've got, you know, and you've got like an overlay, and they've got like 4 moving averages, and it's like that's just way too much. Because I mean, pick one strategy, right, and kind of stick with it for a little while. Because I mean, you know, there's a lot of people that do trade on the Ichimoku, and that's fine, but you know, stick to the strategy. The longer you stick to one particular one, the better you will get at it, and the more consistent you'll be at trading that particular strategy. Here's ELF. Again, you get a cloud exit, but the cloud's going flat, so it's just kind of really hard. I mean, there's nothing here on this guy. Zcash. Where was it? That's nice. Zcash. I like that. See, another reason to like it. A nice little push higher. You can see in this forecasting a twist here, Tekinson. So a couple ways to look at it here, right? If you're trading on the Ichi side, you would wait either, I mean, the buy point was back here somewhere, or as it crossed back above there. Or if you're missing it, you could wait for this to hit the TK line, right? So maybe put a dip buy order or something there, but it's looking pretty good. Oh, I'm going to just kind of scroll through and pick some of the bigger cap names. Not going to hit all of these here for the sake of time. OMG USD did an exit. We'll take a look at that. And I think that is it. Yeah, not too bad here. Again, this is technically still going flat, right? You look at the cloud, but at least it's prices above. It's forecasting in green there. So, yeah, we'll see. OMG is not too bad here. Okay, so half the battle is scanning the charts, looking for setups, and then once you find a good setup or a potential, you set the stops, you set the potential target, you look at support, resistance, you pick a higher time frame, right? So if your trading time frame is a 4-hour chart, right? Let's say I like this and I'm trading it from a 4-hour chart perspective, then zoom out to a higher time frame. And that's kind of your anchor chart that validates your thesis, right? Or it'll tell you maybe you should wait. So for example, if I like VeChain and I'm going long, I would zoom out to the daily chart. And, I'm saying, hey, this is still technically a downtrend. Maybe I should wait, or this is an aggressive entry. Where do I put my stop? That sort of thing. QuantStamp, right? The daily chart is still higher. That's good. I'm trading on the 4-hour chart. So there you go. If you're doing a 1-hour chart, then your anchor chart's the 4-hour. So if I'm looking for trades and setups here on this 1-hour, then I'm going to zoom out to the 4-hour and see, hey, how does that look, right? Is the trend in my favor? Should I wait? Is it going down? That sort of thing. And then once you find that, then kind of pick your spots, your entry points, set some alerts, put a little bit of a flag or watch list together. And then that's kind of my routine, right? Obviously I'll use the alerts and I'll use some other scanning that helps make this process faster. I put you on the spot, Michael. Sorry. It'll make this process faster. But what I'll do is once I have my watch list, I'll I have the alerts set, but then I'll go through and I'll just kind of quickly cycle through because I already know what I'm looking for on a particular name, and it makes it easier to keep track of at that point, right? So it's just one way that I do it. Okay. Well, I hope that helped, guys. Couple things real quick before I wrap up for those that are still here. I'm going to be on the road early tomorrow. We'll probably be offline most of the day. I'll check in the evening, and then I'll be away for 2 days after that. But I'll be able to check in from time to time. So hopefully nothing gets too crazy. So I won't be as active, or if there's delays on questions, that's why. But I'll be checking in still, and I'll get back to you guys as quickly as I can. So just a heads up. But thanks for being here. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you guys as always. And of course, any questions, any comments, feel free to follow up on the Slack side, and we will keep the conversation going there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you guys next time.